The bread hit her face before she even saw it coming. Hard crust, day-old sourdough, launched from 20 feet away with the kind of precision that came from years of lacrosse practice at Exeter Academy. It struck her cheekbone with enough force to snap her head sideways, crumbs exploding across her face, scattering onto the pristine marble floor of the Vanderbilt Hotel lobby like shrapnel. The laughter started immediately, high-pitched, delighted, performative, the kind of sound rich people make when they think consequences don't apply to them. "Oh my God, Chase, did you see her face? Do it again, do it again!" Melissa Hartford shrieked, her Air Mass bag swinging as she doubled over, perfectly manicured hand clutching her son's shoulder for support. Her husband Robert stood beside her, iPhone already out, recording, that dead-eyed smirk spreading across his face like he'd just witnessed the funniest thing he'd seen all year. Their son Chase, 24 years old and dressed in clothes that cost more than most people made in 3 months, was already reaching for another roll from the restaurant basket behind him, weighing it in his palm, testing the heft like he was selecting ammunition. The woman on the floor didn't move, didn't look up, just stayed there on her knees where she'd been trying to pick up coins someone had dropped earlier, quarters and dimes scattered across marble because her hands were shaking too badly from hunger to hold them properly. Her clothes were wrong for this place. Torn jeans with holes that weren't fashionable, just worn through. Oversized men's coat 3 sizes too big, probably found in a donation bin somewhere, smelling like mothballs and someone else's life. Hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, no product, no styling, just clean because she'd washed it in a public restroom sink that morning. She looked like she'd wandered in from another world, and she had, because 6 months ago, Sienna Park had been living in a penthouse in Seoul worth $43 million, and now she was picking up loose change in a New York hotel lobby while strangers threw bread at her head for entertainment. Chase Hartford threw the second roll. This one hit her shoulder, bounced off, landed in her lap. "Fetch," he said, loud enough for everyone in the lobby to hear, loud enough to make sure they all understood this was a performance, a show, entertainment at someone else's expense. "Come on, I said, fetch, or are you too stupid to understand basic commands?" His mother was recording now too, 2 phones capturing the same moment from different angles, already imagining the Instagram post, the views, the likes, the social currency of humiliating someone who couldn't fight back. "This is absolutely priceless," Melissa said, zooming in on Sienna's face, on the way her hands had gone still in her lap. "Robert, are you getting this? God, the things you see in this city, they really will let anyone in anywhere these days." And none of them, not Chase with his lacrosse aim and prep school entitlement, not Melissa with her phone and her cruelty disguised as amusement, not Robert with his recording and his silence that was its own form of violence, not the 100 guests frozen in their leather chairs pretending not to watch, understood they had just humiliated the one woman in that lobby who was married to a man capable of erasing their $900 million empire before the sun set. The man who was, at that exact moment, walking through the hotel's brass-handled entrance 60 feet away, expensive shoes silent on marble, eyes scanning the lobby the way he'd scanned 1,000 lobbies in 100 cities across 6 months of desperate searching. This is the story of how a piece of bread destroyed 3 lives, how laughter turned into handcuffs, how one family lost everything because they threw food at a woman they thought was powerless, how cruelty met consequence in a hotel lobby on a Tuesday afternoon when the world wasn't paying attention until suddenly everyone was. Before we continue, can I ask you a question? Where in the world are you watching from? Comment below because we'd love to know how far these stories travel, and hit that subscribe button because what happens next will show you exactly what justice looks like when it finally arrives. Now, let's continue.
Afro tales. The weak will become strong one day.
Sienna's hands closed around the bread in her lap. Her fingers were thin, too thin, the kind of thin that came from not eating regularly, from meals missed not by choice, but by circumstance, from 6 months of hunger that had become so normal she sometimes forgot what fullness felt like. She hadn't eaten in 3 days, before that 4 days. The shelter she'd been staying at in Brooklyn had lost its food supplier, and meals were sporadic, first come, first serve, and she'd given her last meal ticket to a woman with a baby because Sienna remembered what it felt like to be desperate and alone. Even if she couldn't remember the specific details, couldn't piece together the 6 months of fog that sat in her mind where memories should have been. She looked up slowly. Her face was blank, empty. The look of someone who'd already lost everything and had nothing left to fear, because there was nothing left to take. "I speak English," she said quietly, her voice carrying that slight Korean accent that marked her as foreign, as other, as acceptable to mock in public spaces where people thought their wealth made them untouchable. "Oh, it talks!" Melissa Hartford clapped her hands together like she'd just watched a clever trick. "Robert, did you hear? It actually speaks. I thought maybe it was one of those, the ones who just hold signs and don't actually communicate." Robert Hartford laughed, low and mean. "Melissa, darling, you can't say things like that. Someone might think you're being—" He paused, smirking at his wife, at his son, at the small audience they'd gathered. "Unkind." The word dripped with sarcasm, with the certainty of people who'd never faced consequences for their unkindness, who'd spent entire lives being cruel and calling it honesty, being vicious and calling it standards. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking," Melissa said, phone still up, still recording, thumb already hovering over the post button. "This is a 5-star hotel, the Vanderbilt. My family has been members here for 30 years. 30 years! And now they're just letting anyone crawl around on the floors like animals. It's disgusting. The standards have completely collapsed." Chase stepped closer, designer shoes clicking on marble, that entitled swagger that came from never being told no, from never facing rejection, from growing up in a world where his last name opened doors and his money smoothed over any rough edges his personality created. He was handsome in that generic wealthy way. Sharp jaw, expensive haircut, personal trainer body. All the advantages that money could buy, and none of the character that struggle builds. "You know what I think?" he said, loud enough for the lobby to hear, performing for his parents and for the cameras and for the other guests who were watching now, some uncomfortable but all silent. "I think someone needs to teach this about appropriate behavior, about knowing your place." He grabbed her chin, just reached down and grabbed her face like she was an object, like she was property, forcing her to look up at him while his mother kept filming and his father kept smirking, and nobody, not one single person in that lobby full of educated, wealthy, influential people, said a word to stop him. "Look at that," Chase said, tilting her face toward the cameras. "Probably hasn't showered in weeks. You can practically smell the poverty on her." He shoved her face away, not hard enough to knock her down, but hard enough to make her stumble, to make his point, to establish his power. Sienna caught herself with one hand on the marble. Her other hand was still clutching the bread. She stood up slowly, painfully, joints protesting, malnutrition making every movement harder than it should have been. She was 5'6", but she looked smaller, diminished, like she'd been compressed by the weight of 6 months living on streets and in shelters and under bridges when the shelters were full. "I'm not a dog," she said softly, not defiant, not angry, just stating a fact with the quiet dignity of someone who'd been reduced to nothing and was still trying to hold on to some sense of self. "Could have fooled me," Chase said. He was enjoying this, really enjoying it. The power, the control, the way she didn't fight back, couldn't fight back, had no recourse and no protection and nowhere to go. "I mean, you're on the floor, you're dirty, you're begging for scraps. If it walks like a dog and smells like a dog—" He trailed off, grinning at his own cleverness, at the way his parents were laughing, at the validation he was getting for his cruelty. That's when Kang Min-jun moved. He'd been standing by the entrance for 45 seconds, watching, calculating, letting the scene play out because he needed to see exactly who these people were, exactly what they were capable of, exactly how far they'd go. He'd spent 6 months searching, 183 days, 42 cities across 3 continents, Seoul, Tokyo, Beijing, London, Paris, New York. 173 private investigators, each with photos, each with instructions, each with standing orders to call immediately if they found anything at all. The smallest lead, the faintest trace. The accident happened on a Tuesday. They'd been heading to Incheon Airport, early morning traffic, rain making the roads slick. Some kid in a stolen car ran a red light going 70 miles an hour, T-boned their sedan on the passenger side where Sienna had been sitting, reading something on her phone, not wearing her seatbelt because they were only 10 minutes from the airport and she'd been distracted. The impact had been catastrophic. Their car had spun 3 times, slammed into a concrete barrier, glass everywhere, metal twisted like paper. Min-jun had woken up in a hospital with a concussion and 3 broken ribs. Sienna had been in a different hospital with a severe head injury, unconscious, critical condition. He'd been released after 4 days, went straight to her hospital, found her room empty. Nurses confused. Security footage showed her walking out at 3 in the morning wearing hospital clothes, barefoot, confused, disappearing into Seoul's streets like a ghost. Police searched, found nothing. It was like she'd evaporated. And Min-jun had spent every day since then looking because she was his wife and he'd promised her father on his deathbed that he'd protect her, and he'd failed, and he wouldn't stop until he found her. And now, here she was, in a New York hotel lobby. Thin, dirty, clothes that weren't hers, some rich kid's hand still hovering near her face, and Min-jun felt something in his chest that he hadn't felt in a very long time. Not anger. Anger was too small. This was rage. Cold, calculated, the kind of rage that didn't explode, the kind that planned. He crossed the lobby in 6 steps, silent, controlled. He was 39 years old, CEO of Nexus Global Technologies, a semiconductor company worth $78 billion that he'd built from absolutely nothing, started in his parents' garage in Seoul with borrowed equipment and a vision nobody believed in. Now he employed 120,000 people in 23 countries. Forbes called him the architect of the digital age. Time had named him Person of the Year. He'd given away $14 billion to charity and still had more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. None of that mattered. What mattered was the woman in front of him. The woman who looked like a stranger but moved like someone he'd known his entire life. The woman he'd married 7 years ago in a small ceremony in Busan with 30 people and her father crying because he was sick and knew he wouldn't live to see grandchildren, but was grateful his daughter had found someone who looked at her like she was the only person in the room. Min-jun stopped 5 feet from Chase Hartford, didn't speak, just stood there, looking at this 24-year-old trust fund child with the kind of cold assessment usually reserved for failed investments and disappointing quarterly reports. Chase turned, annoyed at being interrupted during his performance. Can I help you?" That automatic dismissiveness rich white men use when they think they're being bothered by someone beneath them. He didn't even fully turn around, just glanced over his shoulder, already bored. "You just assaulted my wife." Min-jun's voice was quiet, calm, the kind of calm that came before hurricanes. His English was perfect, educated at Stanford, MBA from Wharton. No accent except the faint soul lilt he'd never tried to hide and wouldn't if he could. The lobby went silent, completely, absolutely silent. Even the background music seemed to stop, though that was probably just perception, the way the world narrows when something significant is about to happen. Chase turned fully now, confused, then amused, then openly mocking. "Your wife?" He laughed, looked at his parents, looked at the cameras still recording. "Your wife? This?" He gestured at Sienna like she was an object, a thing, less than human. "Dude, I don't know what game you're running here, but this is clearly some homeless woman who wandered in off the street. Security should have removed her an hour ago." Melissa Hartford stepped forward, phone still recording, sensing drama, loving it, already imagining the engagement this video would get. "Oh, this is too good. Is this some kind of scam? Are you two working together? Because we have everything on video, and we will absolutely press charges for fraud and harassment and whatever else our lawyers can think of." Minjun ignored her. His eyes went to Sienna. She was staring at him, really staring. Her face had changed. The emptiness was cracking, confusion creeping underneath, something stirring in the fog. Her lips parted, closed, opened again. "I know you," she whispered. "I know your face. I've seen—" Her hand went to her head, touched the scar hidden beneath her hair, the one from the accident, the head injury that had stolen 6 months of her life. "We were in a car. There was glass, so much glass everywhere, and rain, and you were—" Her voice broke. "You were screaming my name." "Sienna." He used the Korean term of endearment without thinking, the casual intimacy of people who'd shared a life, shared a bed, shared dreams and failures, and 7 years of building something together. "It's me. It's Minjun. I've been looking for you. Every single day. I've been looking." Her eyes filled with tears. "Minjun," she repeated, testing the word, testing the memory that was trying to surface through the fog. We were going to the airport. You had a meeting in Singapore. I was coming with you because I didn't want to stay home alone, and—" She swayed, unsteady, 6 months of malnutrition and trauma catching up. He was there instantly, catching her elbow, steadying her. The touch was electric, familiar. Her body remembered even if her mind was still struggling. She didn't pull away. "Okay, this is actually insane." Chase Hartford's voice had lost some of its certainty now, that first crack of doubt appearing. "Are we seriously supposed to believe that this homeless woman is married to— Who even are you? Some K-pop star or something?" The casual racism was reflexive, thoughtless, the kind that came from never having to think about consequences. Robert Hartford stepped forward now, putting himself between Minjun and his son, chest puffed, phone still recording. "Look, I don't know what kind of con you're running here, but we're not buying it. My family has been members of this hotel for 3 decades. We know the management, we know security, and we know they don't let transients harass guests." "Transients." Minjun repeated the word like he was tasting it, testing it, filing it away for later. "That's what you called her, a transient, while you threw food at her head and filmed it for entertainment." "Oh, please." Melissa Hartford rolled her eyes, the ultimate dismissal. "She's clearly mentally unwell. We were having a little fun. If she didn't want attention, she shouldn't have been crawling around on the floor looking pathetic. This is the Vanderbilt, not a homeless shelter. Standards matter." Can I pause for just a second? Because I need you to understand something that's about to happen. The Hartford family, at this exact moment, still thought they were winning, still thought their $900 million and their social connections and their 3 generations of wealth made them untouchable. They had no idea they were speaking to a man who'd built $78 billion from nothing, who had connections that made theirs look like a child's birthday party invite list, who was about to demonstrate exactly what real power looked like when it decided to act. Comment below if you've ever seen entitled people get exactly what they deserve, because what happens next is going to remind you that sometimes, just sometimes, the universe balances the scales. Minjun pulled out his phone. 1 call, that's all it took. He didn't look away from the Hartfords while he dialed, just kept his eyes locked on them, watching them, cataloging every expression, every word, every gesture for the legal proceedings that were about to consume their lives. The phone rang twice before someone answered. "Mr. Chen?" "Yes, it's Kong Minjun. I'm in the lobby of your hotel, the Vanderbilt. I need you to pull security footage from the last 15 minutes and have your legal team standing by. Also, call the police. I'm pressing assault charges." He listened for a moment while someone spoke on the other end. "No, I'm fine. My wife she's here. She's safe. We'll discuss the details when you arrive. You have 7 minutes." He hung up. "Who the hell is Mr. Chen?" Chase demanded, but his voice had lost that certainty now, that edge of arrogance starting to fray. "Chen Wei. He owns this hotel, and the 4 others in the Vanderbilt chain. We went to Stanford together." Good man. Hates bullies. Minjun slid his phone back into his pocket. The police will be here in approximately 4 minutes. Hotel security is reviewing footage now, and my legal team, which you'll be meeting very soon, is already drafting assault charges, harassment charges, and a civil suit for emotional distress and damages. The color started draining from Robert Hartford's face. Not all of it, not yet, but enough to show he was beginning to understand this might actually be real. You can't be serious. Over a piece of bread? This is absurd. This is absolutely... You threw food at a woman's head multiple times. You filmed it. You called her a dog and demanded she bark. Your son physically grabbed her face. All of this is on your phones, which you were helpfully recording, and on hotel security cameras, which capture everything in this lobby from 6 different angles. New York has excellent assault laws, very protective of vulnerable populations. Homeless individuals, for instance, are specifically protected under hate crime enhancement statutes when they're targeted for their economic status. Minjun's voice was still calm, still quiet, but now there was steel underneath, cold, hard, unbreakable. You've committed multiple felonies in the last 15 minutes. Congratulations on your performance. I'm sure it'll play very well in court. Melissa Hartford's phone lowered slowly. Her face had gone pale now, really pale. That expensive foundation not quite covering the fear starting to show through. You can't possibly. We're the Hartfords. We're respected members of... You're nobody. Minjun cut her off. First time his voice had any real edge. You're 3 people with inherited money who think cruelty is entertainment. And after today, you'll be 3 people with a criminal record who threw bread at a homeless woman for fun and filmed it and posted it online where 20 million people are going to watch you destroy your own lives. Sienna's grip on his arm tightened. She was remembering now. He could see it happening, memories flooding back through whatever neurological damage the accident had caused, 6 months of fog starting to clear. The accident, she whispered, loud enough only for him to hear. We were going to Singapore. You had that meeting with the investors. I was coming with you because I wanted to see the gardens, the cloud forest at Gardens by the Bay. Someone ran a light. I remember the impact. And then waking up in a hospital and you weren't there. And I couldn't remember your name. I couldn't remember my own name. So I walked. I left the hospital and I walked. And I kept walking because I thought if I walked long enough I'd find something, someone, anything familiar. You've been walking for 6 months. He said it gently, but the pain in his voice was obvious, carefully controlled but present. 183 days. I've been looking for you every single day. I hired investigators in every major city, Seoul, Tokyo, Beijing, London, New York, everywhere. And you've been here. You've been here in New York this whole time. She started crying. Not dramatic sobs, just quiet tears streaming down her face while she stared at him like he was a miracle, something impossible that had somehow become real. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't remember you. I wanted to remember. I tried so hard, but everything was just gone. Shh, it's okay. It's not your fault. None of this is your fault. He pulled her closer, carefully, aware that she was fragile in ways that had nothing to do with physical strength. But he looked back at the Hartfords, and his expression went cold again. They're going to wish they'd shown you kindness. The elevator across the lobby opened. Chen Wei stepped out, 63 years old, elegant in a tailored suit, moving fast despite his age. Behind him, hotel security. Behind them, 2 NYPD officers who must have been nearby, responding faster than expected. The lobby, already silent, somehow became more so. Minjun. Chen Wei's face was grave as he approached, as he took in the scene, as he saw Sienna's condition, saw the breadcrumbs still on her clothes, saw her tears. His expression hardened. I watched the security footage, all of it. I'm horrified this happened in my establishment, truly horrified. He looked at the Hartfords, at their phones, at the expressions on their faces that were shifting now from arrogance to real fear. "I want them arrested immediately." "Mr. Chen, surely we can discuss this privately." Robert Hartford's voice had gone pleading now, desperate, all that arrogance evaporating like water on hot pavement. "We can—" "You filmed yourself committing assault and posted it online. The video already has 86,000 views. It's evidence. There's nothing to discuss." Chen Wei gestured to the police officers. "These 3 individuals assaulted a guest in my hotel. I want them charged with everything applicable." What happened next played out like a nightmare for the Hartford family and like justice for everyone else. The officers moved forward, started asking questions. The Hartfords tried everything: bribery, which the officers ignored and noted for their report; threats about knowing the mayor, which made things worse; demanding lawyers, which was their right but didn't change the evidence. Melissa Hartford screamed about persecution, about being targeted, about how dare anyone treat her family like criminals. Chase Hartford actually tried to run, got maybe 6 feet before hotel security grabbed him, not gently, brought him back. Robert Hartford just kept repeating "this can't be happening" like a mantra, like if he said it enough times, reality would reshape itself to his preferences. They were handcuffed, all 3 of them, read their Miranda rights, walked out of the lobby past 200 guests who'd watched the whole thing unfold, most of them with phones out, recording everything, already posting to social media. The story was going viral in real time, spreading faster than anything the Hartford's publicist could hope to contain. Wealthy family arrested after assaulting a homeless woman. Hotel heiress films herself throwing bread at a vulnerable person. Trust fund bully gets instant karma, arrested on camera. The headlines were writing themselves, algorithms pushing the story to millions of people who loved nothing more than watching rich people face consequences. Min Jun took Sienna upstairs to a suite Chen Wei provided, refused payment, refused any discussion of payment. She stood in the bathroom doorway staring at the marble shower, the heated floors, the luxury that had once been her normal life and now seemed alien. "I've been sleeping in a shelter in Brooklyn," she said quietly, "when I could get a bed. They only had 30 beds and there were always more than 30 people. So most nights I'd sleep in the subway or under the overpass near Prospect Park. Anywhere that was dry, anywhere that felt safe." She laughed, bitter. "I forgot what warm felt like, forgot what clean felt like." He wanted to say something comforting, but words failed, so he just started filling the bathtub, adding expensive bath oils the hotel provided, setting out clean towels. "Take as long as you need. I'll order food. Real food. Whatever you want. As much as you want." She undressed slowly. Her body showed 6 months of suffering. Ribs visible, hip bones jutting, collarbone too prominent, muscle wasted away. She caught him looking and her arms went across her chest, protective. I'm not who I was." "You're exactly who you were." He stepped closer, but didn't touch her, giving her space, giving her control. "You're Sienna Park. You built a foundation that's educated 6,000 children in Southeast Asia. You speak 4 languages. You can't cook to save your life, but you insist on trying anyway. You laugh at terrible jokes and cry during commercials, and you believe, really believe, that the world can be better if people just tried harder to be kind." His voice cracked slightly. "You're all of that. The weight you lost, the clothes you're wearing, the months you can't remember, those are just things that happened to you. They're not who you are." She started crying again, harder this time. 6 months of fear and confusion and hunger and cold pouring out all at once. He held her while she sobbed, careful of her too thin frame, letting her break apart, because sometimes that's what healing looked like. Breaking first, coming apart so you could be put back together properly. Downstairs, 300 miles away in Boston, the Hartford family's lawyer was having the worst day of his career. The video had gone viral. 20 million views in 4 hours, 30 million by midnight. News outlets calling, major networks wanting interviews, social media absolutely destroying them. Their venture capital firm's board calling emergency meetings, partners drafting statements distancing themselves, investors pulling out. The family name, carefully cultivated over 3 generations of strategic marriages and business deals and charitable donations that bought respectability, was being demolished in real time by a video of them throwing bread at a homeless woman. But that was just the beginning. Min Jun's legal team, which consisted of 14 lawyers from 3 of the best firms in New York, filed everything: criminal charges, assault in the 2nd degree, aggravated harassment, hate crime enhancements because targeting someone for their economic status qualified under New York law, civil suit, $10 million in damages for emotional distress, pain and suffering, loss of dignity. And then, because Min Jun never believed in half measures when someone hurt the people he loved, he started making phone calls to every major business partner Hartford Capital had ever worked with. Explained the situation calmly, professionally, showed them the video, suggested, very politely, that they might want to reconsider their business associations with people who assaulted vulnerable individuals for entertainment. The calls were friendly, the implications were not. Within 48 hours, Hartford Capital Partners lost 70% of their investor base. Within a week, they'd lost their offices when the building owner terminated their lease, citing morality clauses in the contract. Within a month, they'd filed for bankruptcy. The $900 million empire dissolved like sugar in water, erased so completely it was like it had never existed at all. Chase Hartford got 18 months in Rikers for assault. Melissa and Robert Hartford got 6 months of weekends, 1,200 hours of community service, and permanent criminal records. Their country club expelled them. Their friends stopped returning calls. Their name became a punchline, a cautionary tale, a reminder that in the age of social media, cruelty could destroy you faster than any business failure. Sienna recovered slowly, physically first, with proper nutrition and medical care and warmth and safety. She gained weight, got healthy. The hollows in her cheeks filled in, the sharpness of her bones softened. Mentally took longer. The memories came back in fragments, pieces of a puzzle reassembling themselves slowly, carefully. She'd been walking for 6 months. New York, Philadelphia, Boston, back to New York. Just walking, following some instinct she couldn't name, searching for something she couldn't remember. She'd found kindness sometimes, a shelter worker who'd saved her an extra blanket, a bodega owner who'd let her have day-old sandwiches, a librarian who'd pretended not to notice she was sleeping in the bathroom. But she'd found cruelty more often, people who'd spit at her, kicked her, stolen what little she had, treated her like she was invisible, or worse, like she was a problem to be removed. The Hartfords hadn't been unique. They'd just been stupid enough to film it. Can I ask you something? Do you believe people can be redeemed? That suffering can create purpose instead of just pain? Because what Sienna did next wasn't about revenge. It was about making sure what happened to her never happened to anyone else, if she could prevent it. Comment your thoughts below, because the next part is where this story becomes about more than just one person's justice. 1 year after the incident, Sienna Park stood on a stage in Manhattan at a charity gala, fully recovered now, healthy, wearing a simple black dress that cost less than she used to spend on shoes because expensive clothes didn't matter the same way anymore. She spoke about homelessness, about vulnerability, about what it felt like to be invisible in a city of 8 million people, about the 6 months she'd spent wandering, how people had looked through her like she was glass, how she'd learned that poverty made you disappear in ways that went beyond just lacking shelter. The speech went viral. 50 million views in a week. She became something unexpected, a voice, not just for homeless advocacy, but for human dignity, for the radical idea that cruelty shouldn't be entertainment, that suffering shouldn't be ignored, that people mattered regardless of their economic status. The foundation she built with Minjun's support became the largest homeless advocacy organization in the United States. $300 million in funding within 2 years, programs in 40 cities, housing first initiatives, job training, medical care, mental health services, everything she'd needed and hadn't had access to during those 6 months. Thousands of lives changed. Thousands of people who'd been invisible suddenly seen, helped, given the chance to rebuild. 5 years later, Minjun and Sienna walked through that same Vanderbilt hotel lobby. The hotel had changed. New policies about treating all people with dignity regardless of appearance. Staff training programs about homelessness and mental health, and basic human decency. Chen Wei had made it a model, implemented the changes across all 5 Vanderbilt properties. They stopped where she'd been kneeling that day, where the bread had hit her face, where her life had changed. "Do you ever think about them?" Minjun asked quietly. "The Hartfords?" Sienna considered this, took her time. "Sometimes, I think about how small their world was. They had $900 million, and it meant nothing because they didn't know how to be kind. They could have just walked past me, ignored me, done nothing, and instead they chose to be cruel, and it cost them everything." "Do you regret it, what happened to them?" "No," she said it without hesitation. "Not because I wanted revenge, but because what they did had to have consequences. They hurt someone who couldn't fight back, and they got caught and they paid for it. That's not revenge, that's just accountability, the way things are supposed to work." She looked up at him. "And because of what they did, I found my purpose. The foundation, the advocacy work, the people we've helped. None of that happens if I don't spend those 6 months on the street. So, in a weird way, they gave me something. They just had to destroy themselves to deliver it." They walked out together, hand in hand, into the autumn afternoon. Somewhere in Queens, Chase Hartford finished his shift at a call center, $9 an hour, his Yale law degree worthless because no law firm would hire someone with an assault conviction. His parents lived in different states now, estranged, broke, unable to look at each other without being reminded of everything they'd lost. And in a homeless shelter in Brooklyn, a young woman sat in an intake office, terrified, alone, holding a pamphlet someone had given her. The Park Foundation. She read about housing assistance, job training, medical care. Read about the founder who'd been homeless too, who understood, who'd built something beautiful from something broken. "You're going to be okay," the intake coordinator said gently. "I promise, you're going to get through this, and someday, maybe you'll help someone else the way we're helping you. That's how it works. That's how we survive." So let me ask you one final question. What would you have done? If you'd witnessed what Minjun witnessed, if you'd had the power to act, would you have shown mercy or demanded justice? Comment below, because your answer matters. And if this story moved you, if it reminded you that cruelty should have consequences and kindness should have power, hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Thank you for watching. God bless you, and remember,
Afro Tales. The weak will become strong one day.